Hey everybody. The next little thing we're going to talk about here in order to understand the Great Depression is to understand really the important role that banks play within our economy. I think most of us understand that banks are important institutions because number one, they give us a place to save our money, and number two, banks also are a great place for us to get loans. Okay? And both of those are true, and both of those are important. But what I think most people really don't understand is that banks are really where money is created within our economy. And if banks are not creating the money, then really our economy is really not allowed to grow. All right, so let's kind of show how this works. How do banks really create money? So let's say I go ahead and deposit $1,000 into my bank account. Okay, now what the bank does is the bank is going to have to keep a certain percentage of my money. And we've talked a little bit about this, perhaps. I don't know if you've watched the video on it yet. But the bank has to keep a certain percentage, that's known as the RRR, Required Reserve Ratio. So I have to keep 20% of my investment, which means they have to keep $200. Okay? Which means they can loan out the other 80%, which comes out obviously to $800. All right? So let's say that somebody wants to buy I don't know, a new scooter. Spring's here, why not? Buy a scooter. All right. So someone comes and loans $800 from the bank, and they go and buy a scooter from some dude. All right. The dude who sold the scooter is going to take that 800 bucks that he just got paid. All right, and he's going to then go put it in the bank. Okay, and the bank's going to keep. I don't know what's going on here. Sorry about that. The bank's going to have to then take 20% of his $800. All right, which comes out to 160. They're going to have to keep that in their bank. All right, but then they're free to loan out the other 80%, which comes out to $640. Okay, and so let's say somebody wants to buy, I don't know, a new dog. That's kind of dumb, but whatever. A new dog for $640. Take their $640 and they go buy a dog. All right. What I hope you're seeing here is that all this money is getting created. Now, my original $1,000, do I still have it? Of course I do. I still have my $1,000. Does the guy who sold the scooter to the one kid have his $800? He sure does. All right. And does the guy who sold a dog for $640 have $640? Absolutely does. Okay. So in our little scenario here, all right, I kind of like planted the seeds here for all this money creation by putting $1,000 in a bank. Because immediately what happens is my $800 gets loaned out and somebody gets that money. And then the next person that puts that money in the bank also has his money loaned out. And so what we see happening here, just in this one little scenario, we see that my investment of $1,000 has created $1,440 within our economy. All right, that money's now floating out there. And so because the banks exist, money gets created. Now, like I said, could you physically hold all that money? No, you can't. Okay, it exists almost electronically. Okay, but banks are creating this money through loaning out other people's money. That creates money. All right. Now, you think to yourself, and I think we all know this, but during the Great Depression, what institutions start to close like crazy? The banks do. Banks start closing. And once there's that stupid thing again, once the banks start closing, we can probably see what happens. It's pretty easy to understand. All this money, all this creation, all this new wealth that's being generated and people buying stuff goes away because the banks aren't there to make the loans. Okay, so creating money is really the most important thing that banks do.